the sleepy town of Everbrook had seen better days. Nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, it was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and change was rare. So, when the posters went up, plastered on every lamppost and notice board, it caused quite a stir. The magnificent traveling circus, 1 week only. The posters proclaimed in bold, vibrant letters. Beneath the announcement, images of dazzling acrobats, roaring lions, and jubilant clowns beckoned the townspeople to come and witness the spectacle. For a town like Everbrook, this was the most exciting event in years. The circus rolled in on a Monday morning, a procession of colorful wagons and trailers winding their way through the main street. Children gawked and waved, their eyes wide with wonder, while the adults watched with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. The arrival of the circus brought a buzz of excitement, but there were those who remembered the whispers, rumors of a dark past that seemed to cling to the traveling troupe. By noon, the circus had set up on the outskirts of town, a sprawling encampment with a towering red and white striped tent at its center. The air was filled with the scent of popcorn and cotton candy, mingling with the earthy smell of sawdust and hay. Performers bustled about, rehearsing their acts, setting up equipment, and tending to the animals. Among the performers was Evelyn, a young trapeze artist with a bright smile and a haunted look in her eyes. She had joined the circus to escape a troubled past, seeking solace in the thrill of the high wire. As she practiced her routine, soaring through the air with grace and precision, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The air felt heavy, charged with an unseen energy that made her skin prickle. Nearby, Jasper, the old clown, watched the newcomers with a wary eye. His face, painted in a perpetual grin, belied the sorrow and fear that lurked beneath. Jasper had been with the circus for decades, long enough to remember the tragic accident that had stained its history. He had been there when the tent collapsed during a performance, crushing performers and audience members alike. The memory of that night haunted him still, a constant reminder of the curse that followed the circus wherever it went. As the day wore on, the townspeople began to trickle in, eager to catch a glimpse of the wonders inside the tent. Families strolled through the grounds, children dragging their parents from one attraction to another. The atmosphere was electric, but beneath the laughter and music, a sense of unease simmered. As dusk fell, the tent lights flickered to life, casting a warm glow over the circus grounds. The ringmaster, a tall, imposing figure with a booming voice, stood at the entrance, welcoming the guests with a flourish. "Step right up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, prepared to be amazed by feats of daring and displays of wonder. Welcome to the magnificent traveling circus." The crowd surged forward, eager to find their seats. Inside the tent, the air was thick with anticipation. Evelyn took her place on the platform, high above the ring, her heart pounding in her chest. She looked down at the sea of faces, their eyes wide with excitement, and tried to push aside her unease. As the performance began, a hush fell over the crowd. The ringmaster's voice boomed through the tent, introducing each act with grandiose flair. The clowns tumbled and juggled, eliciting peals of laughter. The lions roared, their trainers guiding them through daring tricks. The acrobats soared through the air, defying gravity with every leap and twist. But as the night wore on, the strange occurrences began. The lights flickered and dimmed, casting eerie shadows across the ring. A chill wind blew through the tent, causing the fabric to ripple and snap. And somewhere, just beyond the edge of the light, faint whispers could be heard, voices from the past calling out in anguish. Evelyn felt it most acutely. As she swung through the air, she caught glimpses of shadowy figures, their faces twisted in torment. Her heart raced, and she nearly lost her grip on the trapeze. She knew she wasn't imagining it. The spirits of the past were watching, their presence growing stronger with each passing moment. Down below, Jasper watched with a sinking feeling in his gut. He had warned the new performers, tried to tell them about the curse, but they hadn't listened. Now, as the shadows closed in and the air grew colder, he knew that the past was about to repeat itself. The performance ended with a final, breathtaking act, a tightrope walker balancing on a slender wire high above the ground. As the audience held its breath, the figure wobbled and swayed, the wire trembling beneath their feet. For a moment, it seemed as if they would fall, but with a final desperate lunge, they reached the other side. The crowd erupted into applause, but the uneasy feeling lingered. As the audience filed out of the tent, chattering excitedly about the night's events, the performers gathered backstage, their faces pale and drawn. Evelyn approached Jasper, her eyes wide with fear. "What happened out there?" she whispered. "Did you see them?" Jasper nodded, his expression grim. "The spirits are restless," he said quietly. "The past is catching up with us, and I'm afraid this is only the beginning." Evelyn shivered, glancing back at the tent, now looming dark and silent against the night sky. She could feel it too, the sense of impending doom, the knowledge that the circus was cursed. And as the first stars appeared in the sky, she knew that the haunted circus tent held secrets far darker and more terrifying than she could ever have imagined. The circus grounds were eerily quiet the next morning. The once bustling camp now seemed shrouded in a heavy silence, as if the land itself mourned. The performers went about their routines with an uneasy air, casting nervous glances at the tent. Whispers of the previous night's strange occurrences spread quickly, a creeping dread settling over everyone. Jasper sat alone on a wooden crate, his makeup smudged and his eyes tired. The old clown stared at the tent, memories flooding back in a torrent of grief and fear. He could still hear the screams, still see the twisted wreckage of that fateful night. It had been 20 years ago, during a performance in a town much like Everbrook. The tent was packed with eager spectators, their faces lit with excitement. The air buzzed with anticipation as the ringmaster, a man named Marcus, introduced the next act, a daring high-wire routine performed by twin sisters, Clara and Isabel. The twins were a sight to behold, their movements perfectly synchronized as they danced across the wire. The crowd watched in awe, breath held tight. But then, disaster struck. A supporting pole, weakened by age and wear, gave way. The tent collapsed in a horrifying cascade of canvas and metal, burying performers and audience members alike. Jasper had been spared by a cruel twist of fate, trapped beneath a fallen beam but alive. He had clawed his way out, the sounds of chaos and despair echoing around him. He could still remember the sight of Clara and Isabel, their lifeless bodies entwined, their dreams shattered in an instant. The circus had been forced to move on quickly, the tragedy swept under the rug by those who valued profit over people. The official story was an unfortunate accident, a rare but tragic mishap. But Jasper knew better. He had seen the looks of terror on the twins' faces before they fell, had heard their whispers of something dark lurking in the shadows. Something malevolent. As the circus traveled from town to town, the hauntings began. At first it was small things, whispers in the dark, shadows that moved on their own. But as time went on, the spirits grew bolder. Performers were injured, acts went horribly wrong, and the air grew thick with a sense of impending doom. Jasper knew the spirits of Clara and Isabel were among them, their souls trapped in a cycle of torment and vengeance. Jasper's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps. He looked up to see Evelyn approaching, her face pale but determined. "Jasper," she said quietly, "I need to know what happened. I need to understand why the spirits are haunting us." Jasper sighed, motioning for her to sit. He took a deep breath, the weight of the past heavy on his shoulders. "It was 20 years ago," he began, his voice tinged with sorrow. "We were performing in a town much like this one. The tent was packed, and the twins, Clara and Isabel, were about to perform their high-wire act. But something went wrong. The tent collapsed, and many people died. Clara and Isabel were among them." Evelyn listened intently, her eyes wide with fear and curiosity. "After that night," Jasper continued, "strange things started happening. Whispers, shadows, accidents. We realized the spirits of those who died were still with us, trapped and angry. The circus is cursed, Evelyn, and wherever we go, the spirits follow." Evelyn shivered, the weight of Jasper's words settling over her like a dark cloud. She had sensed something was wrong from the moment she joined the circus, but this was beyond anything she had imagined. "Is there any way to stop it?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Jasper shook his head, his expression grim. "I don't know. We've tried everything, seances, exorcisms, you name it. But the spirits are too strong, their anger too deep. All we can do is try to appease them, to keep the performances going, and hope they find some semblance of peace." Evelyn looked back at the tent, a sense of dread settling in her stomach. The tragic past of the circus was not just a story. It was a living, breathing nightmare that threatened to consume them all. And as she thought of the spirits of Clara and Isabel, she couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the circus grounds. As dusk settled in, a sense of foreboding filled the air. The performers moved with a quiet urgency, preparing for the night's show, their movements brisk and mechanical. The memory of Jasper's words lingered in Evelyn's mind, a haunting echo she couldn't shake. The townspeople began to arrive, their faces alight with excitement and curiosity. Families, young couples, and groups of friends streamed through the entrance, eager to experience the wonders promised by the posters. The ringmaster, ever the showman, greeted them with a broad smile and sweeping gestures, masking his own unease. "Welcome, welcome, ladies and gentlemen," he boomed. "Tonight you will witness feats of incredible daring and spectacular beauty. Prepare to be amazed by the magnificent traveling circus." As the audience settled into their seats, a hush fell over the tent. The lights dimmed, and the first act was introduced. A pair of jugglers whose colorful balls and clubs seemed to defy gravity. The crowd cheered and clapped, the festive atmosphere momentarily dispelling the growing tension. Backstage, Evelyn paced nervously. She had always loved the rush of performing, the exhilaration of soaring through the air. But tonight felt different. The air was heavy, charged with a sinister energy that made her skin prickle. She glanced at Jasper, who stood silently in the shadows, his face etched with worry. The ringmaster's voice echoed through the tent, introducing the next act. Evelyn took a deep breath and stepped onto the platform high above the ring. The trapeze swayed gently as she took her position, the familiar routine grounding her, if only for a moment. As she began her routine, swinging gracefully from one bar to the next, she felt a sudden chill. The temperature seemed to drop, her breath visible in the frigid air. She glanced down and saw them, shadowy figures moving among the audience, their faces twisted in anguish. Clara and Isabel stood at the edge of the ring, their ghostly forms shimmering in the dim light. Evelyn's heart raced, her grip on the trapeze tightening. She had to stay focused, had to complete her routine. But the spirits were relentless, their whispers growing louder, drowning out the cheers of the crowd. She saw Clara's eyes, filled with sorrow and rage, and felt a wave of vertigo. With a final desperate effort, Evelyn finished her routine, landing on the platform with a thud. The audience erupted into applause, but she barely heard it. Her vision blurred, and she swayed on her feet, the ghostly whisper still echoing in her ears. Jasper was there in an instant, steadying her as she stumbled off the platform. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice low and urgent. Evelyn nodded, though she felt anything but. "I saw them, Jasper. Clara and Isabel. They're here." Jasper's face tightened, his worst fears confirmed. "We need to stay strong," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The show must go on, no matter what. It's the only way to keep the spirits at bay." The performance continued, each act more daring than the last. But the strange occurrences persisted. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows across the ring. A chill wind blew through the tent, causing the fabric to ripple and snap. The whispers grew louder, a haunting chorus of voices from the past. The final act of the night was the tightrope walker, a young woman named Lily. She stepped onto the wire, her movements graceful and confident. But as she walked, the wire seemed to tremble beneath her feet. She glanced down and saw the spirits, their faces filled with malice. The audience held its breath as Lily wobbled, her arms flailing for balance. For a moment, it seemed as if she would fall, but with a final desperate lunge, she reached the other side. The crowd erupted into applause, but the uneasy feeling lingered. As the audience filed out of the tent, chattering excitedly about the night's events, the performers gathered backstage, their faces pale and drawn. The spirits had made their presence known, and the sense of dread was palpable. Evelyn approached Jasper, her voice trembling. "What are we going to do? The spirits, they're not just restless, they're angry." Jasper sighed, his shoulders sagging with the weight of the past. "I don't know, Evelyn. But we need to find a way to appease them, to break the curse. Otherwise, this will only get worse." Evelyn looked back at the tent, now looming dark and silent against the night sky. The first night had been a harrowing glimpse into the haunted reality of the circus. And as she thought of the spirits of Clara and Isabel, she knew that the nightmare was far from over. The next morning dawned gray and overcast, the sky a thick blanket of clouds that seemed to press down on the circus grounds. The performers moved with a sluggishness, their steps heavy and their faces drawn. The spirit's presence had left an indelible mark, their whispers echoing in the silence of the new day. Jasper, the old clown, sat by the edge of the camp, his eyes fixed on the distant horizon. His makeup was hastily applied, his usual jovial demeanor replaced by a somber expression. He knew the time had come to share the full extent of the circus's dark history with the newer members. Perhaps, if they understood the depth of the curse, they could find a way to survive. Evelyn approached him, her face pale but determined. "Jasper, we need to talk. The others are scared, and they need to know what's happening." Jasper nodded slowly. "Gather everyone. It's time they knew the truth." The performers assembled in a makeshift circle around Jasper, their expressions a mix of fear and curiosity. Jasper took a deep breath, the weight of his memories pressing down on him. 20 years ago, he began, his voice low and steady. "We were performing in a town just like Everbrook. The tent was packed, the air thick with excitement. The twins, Clara and Isabel, were set to perform their high-wire act. But something went terribly wrong." He paused, the memory of that night flashing before his eyes. The tent collapsed. Clara and Isabel, along with many others, were killed. It was a tragedy, and the circus moved on quickly, trying to bury the past. But the past didn't stay buried. The spirits of those who died that night have been haunting us ever since, seeking revenge for the lives that were taken. The performers exchanged uneasy glances, the gravity of Jasper's words sinking in. "Why didn't anyone tell us?" demanded Hugo, the strong man, his voice tinged with anger. "We should have known about this curse before we joined." Jasper sighed. "We thought it best to keep it quiet, to protect the circus. But the spirits are growing stronger, and their anger more intense. Last night was just the beginning." Evelyn stepped forward, her eyes filled with determination. "We need to find a way to appease them. There has to be something we can do to break the curse." Jasper nodded. "I've been thinking the same thing. The spirits are tied to this place, to the circus. Maybe if we understand what they want, we can find a way to help them move on." As they discussed possible solutions, a sense of unity began to form among the performers. They were no longer just a collection of individuals, but a team bound by a common goal: to survive the haunted circus and break the curse that had plagued them for so long. That night, the atmosphere in the tent was even more charged than before. The performers went through their routines with an air of grim determination, their eyes constantly flickering to the shadows. The audience, oblivious to the true nature of the danger, cheered and clapped, their excitement masking the underlying tension. Jasper's act was met with laughter and applause, but his heart was heavy. As he tumbled and juggled, he kept an eye on the edges of the tent, watching for any signs of the spirits. He knew they were there, lurking just out of sight, their anger palpable. Evelyn's trapeze routine was flawless, but she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. As she soared through the air, she caught glimpses of Clara and Isabel, their ghostly forms shimmering in the dim light. She pushed herself harder, determined to show the spirits that she wasn't afraid. Backstage, the tension was palpable. The performers huddled together, whispering about the strange occurrences and the old clown's warning. They knew the spirits were growing bolder, and the sense of impending doom hung heavy in the air. After the final act, the performers gathered once again, their faces etched with worry. Jasper addressed them, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "We need to hold a seance," he said, his eyes scanning the group. "We need to contact the spirits directly and find out what they want. It's the only way we might be able to break the curse." There were murmurs of agreement, though a few faces showed hesitation and fear. But they all knew that they had no choice. The spirits were not going to leave them alone, and if they wanted to survive, they had to confront the ghosts of the past head-on. As they prepared for the seance, Evelyn felt a shiver run down her spine. She glanced at the tent, now dark and silent, and knew that the coming night would be one of the most important and dangerous of their lives. The haunted circus held its secrets tightly, but they were determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The night of the seance was oppressively dark, the moon hidden behind a thick blanket of clouds. The performers gathered in the center of the circus tent, forming a circle around a makeshift altar. Candles flickered, casting long shadows that danced across the canvas walls. The air was thick with tension and the faint scent of incense. Jasper, the old clown, took his place at the head of the circle, his face solemn. Evelyn sat to his right, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and anticipation. The other performers completed the circle, their expressions a blend of skepticism and hope. Jasper raised his hands, his voice steady and commanding. "Spirits of the past, we call upon you. We seek to understand your pain, to help you find peace. Show yourselves to us and tell us what you need." For a moment, there was nothing but silence. The candles flickered, their flames guttering as a chill wind swept through the tent. Then, slowly, the temperature began to drop, and the shadows seemed to thicken and pulse with a life of their own. Evelyn felt a sudden pressure on her chest, as if an invisible hand were pressing down on her. She gasped, her eyes widening as the ghostly forms of Clara and Isabel materialized before her. The twins floated just above the ground, their faces twisted in anguish. "Why have you called us?" Clara's voice was a ghostly whisper, echoing through the tent. "We seek to help you," Jasper replied, his voice trembling slightly. "We want to understand your pain and help you find peace." Isabel's eyes, hollow and sorrowful, fixed on Jasper. "We cannot rest. Our lives were stolen from us, and we are bound to this place by our anger and sorrow." Evelyn felt a tear slip down her cheek as she listened to the spirit's words. "Is there any way we can help you move on? Anything we can do to set you free?" The twins exchanged a glance, their forms flickering. "There is a way," Clara said softly. "You must find the remains of those who perished with us. They were buried hastily, without proper rites. Their souls are trapped, just as ours are. Bring them peace and you may break the curse." As the spirits began to fade, Evelyn called out, "Wait! How will we find them?" Isabel's voice echoed one last time. "Follow the whispers of the past. They will guide you." With that, the spirits vanished, leaving the performers in stunned silence. The candles flickered back to life, their flames steady once more. Jasper let out a shaky breath, his face pale. "We have our answer," he said, his voice low. "We need to find the remains and give them proper rites. Only then can we hope to break the curse." The performers exchanged nervous glances, but there was a sense of determination in the air. They had a mission, a way to fight back against the darkness that had haunted them for so long. The next day, the search began. The performers scoured the outskirts of Everbrook, following the faint whispers that seemed to guide them. Evelyn felt a strange pull, as if the spirits were leading her to the burial site. She followed her instincts, the whispers growing louder as she approached a dense thicket at the edge of the forest. With trembling hands, she pushed aside the underbrush, revealing a small clearing. The ground was uneven, The earth disturbed. Evelyn dropped to her knees, digging with her bare hands until she uncovered a fragment of bone. Her heart raced as she realized they had found the resting place of the lost souls. She called out to the others, her voice breaking with emotion. "I found them! They're here!" The performers gathered around, their faces solemn. They worked together to carefully exhume the remains, handling each fragment with reverence. As they unearthed the bones, the whispers grew louder, filling the air with a sense of urgency. Jasper stepped forward, his voice strong. "We need to perform the rites. It's the only way to set them free." The performers formed a circle around the remains, their hands joined. Jasper began to chant, calling upon the spirits to find peace and move on from the earthly realm. The air grew thick with energy, and the ground seemed to hum beneath their feet. As the chant reached its crescendo, a bright light enveloped the clearing. The ghostly forms of Clara, Isabel, and the other lost souls appeared, their faces peaceful for the first time. They gazed at the performers with gratitude, their forms slowly fading into the light. "Thank you," Clara whispered, her voice barely audible. "You have set us free." With that, the spirits vanished, the light fading to reveal the clearing once more. The air felt lighter, the oppressive darkness lifted. The performers stood in stunned silence, the weight of the curse finally lifted from their shoulders. Evelyn looked at Jasper, a smile breaking through her tears. "We did it. We really did it." Jasper nodded, his face breaking into a rare smile. "Yes, we did. The spirits can finally rest, and so can we." As they made their way back to the circus grounds, a sense of relief and triumph filled the air. The haunted circus tent, once a place of fear and sorrow, now stood as a symbol of resilience and hope. The performers knew they had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, their bond stronger than ever. And as the sun set on Everbrook, the circus continued its journey, no longer haunted by the ghosts of the past, but guided by the strength and unity of those who had broken the curse. The mood at the circus lightened considerably after the séance. The performers moved with a newfound energy, their steps lighter and their laughter genuine. The oppressive atmosphere that had hung over them for so long seemed to have lifted, replaced by a sense of hope and renewal. That evening, the circus tent was filled to capacity, the townspeople of Everbrook eager to witness the now famous haunted circus. Word of the séance and the subsequent exorcism had spread, and curiosity brought even the most skeptical townsfolk to see if the stories were true. Evelyn took her place high above the ring, her heart pounding with anticipation. The applause and cheers of the audience filled her with a sense of purpose and pride. As she soared through the air, executing each move with grace and precision, she felt truly free for the first time since joining the circus. But as the night wore on, the sense of unease that had plagued them before began to creep back. The lights flickered intermittently, and the air grew cold once more. Evelyn glanced down and saw Jasper watching from the shadows, his face etched with concern. The final act of the night was a daring aerial routine performed by Lily, the young acrobat who had impressed the audience the previous night. She ascended the platform with a confident smile, waving to the crowd below. Evelyn watched from her perch, feeling a strange sense of foreboding. As Lily began her routine, the tent fell silent, all eyes fixed on her graceful movements. She swung from the trapeze, her body twisting and turning in a breathtaking display of skill. But then, something went wrong. Mid-swing, Lily's grip faltered, and she plummeted toward the ground. The audience gasped, and Evelyn's heart skipped a beat. But at the last moment, Lily caught a safety net that had been hastily set up, saving her from a deadly fall. She clung to the net, her face pale and her body trembling. The ringmaster quickly called an end to the performance, and the audience filed out, murmuring with a mix of relief and disappointment. Backstage, the performers gathered around Lily, who was still shaking from the close call. "What happened up there?" Evelyn asked, her voice filled with concern. Lily shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know. I felt something cold, like an icy hand trying to pull me down." Jasper's face darkened, and he exchanged a worried glance with Evelyn. "We need to stay vigilant," he said quietly. "The spirits may be gone, but something else is at play here." The performers dispersed, each lost in their own thoughts. Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that the danger was far from over. She decided to stay close to Lily, watching over her as they made their way back to their trailers for the night. But in the morning, Evelyn awoke to find Lily's bed empty. Panic surged through her as she raced out of the trailer, calling for the others. The performers gathered, their faces pale with worry as they realized Lily was missing. A frantic search ensued, the performers scouring the circus grounds and the surrounding area. They called out her name, their voices echoing in the still morning air. But there was no sign of the young acrobat. Evelyn felt a cold knot of fear tighten in her chest. She couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had caused Lily to falter on the trapeze was responsible for her disappearance. As the hours passed with no sign of Lily, the sense of dread grew stronger. That evening, as the sun set and the shadows lengthened, the performers gathered in the tent, their faces etched with worry and exhaustion. Jasper addressed the group, his voice steady but tinged with urgency. "We need to find Lily," he said, "and we need to understand what is happening here. The spirits of Clara and Isabel may have moved on, but there's something else at work, something darker." Evelyn nodded, her determination renewed. "We'll find her," she said firmly, "and we'll get to the bottom of this, whatever it takes." As night fell, the performers set out in small groups, combing the surrounding woods and fields for any trace of Lily. The whispers of the past seemed to guide them once more, faint voices calling out from the darkness. Evelyn and Jasper led one of the search parties, their lanterns casting flickering beams of light in the thickening gloom. They moved through the forest, their footsteps muffled by the soft earth and fallen leaves. The air was thick with tension, every rustle and snap of a twig making them jump. They called out Lily's name, their voices growing hoarse with effort. But the forest remained silent, the darkness pressing in around them. As they reached a small clearing, Evelyn felt a chill run down her spine. "Do you feel that?" she whispered to Jasper, her voice trembling. Jasper nodded, his eyes scanning the darkness. "We're close. I can feel it." They pressed on, their lanterns casting eerie shadows as they moved deeper into the woods. The whispers grew louder, guiding them to a secluded spot where the ground was disturbed. Evelyn's heart raced as she realized they had found another burial site, much like the one before. Jasper knelt down, his hands trembling as he brushed aside the leaves and dirt. As they uncovered the remains, a faint, ghostly light began to emanate from the ground. The air grew cold, and the whispers reached a fever pitch. Suddenly, the ghostly form of Lily appeared before them, her eyes wide with fear and sorrow. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Please help me." Evelyn reached out, tears streaming down her face. "We're here, Lily. We'll help you. Just tell us what to do." The ghostly form of Lily flickered, her eyes filled with anguish. "You must find the source, the darkness that binds us. Only then can we be free." As the apparition faded, Evelyn and Jasper exchanged a determined glance. They knew their journey was far from over. They had to uncover the source of the darkness that haunted the circus and put an end to it once and for all. With renewed determination, they made their way back to the circus grounds, the whispers of the past guiding them. The performers gathered once more, their faces filled with resolve. "We'll find the source," Evelyn said, her voice strong, "and we'll put an end to this curse, for Lily, and for all of us." As they prepared for the challenges ahead, the haunted circus tent stood as a symbol of their determination. They knew the path would be dangerous and filled with darkness, but they were ready to face it together. The battle against the supernatural forces that plagued them had only just begun, and they were prepared to fight until the very end. The air in the circus tent was thick with anticipation and fear. The performers gathered once again in a circle, their faces lit by the flickering candlelight. The disappearance of Lily had cast a long shadow over their renewed hope, and they knew they had to confront the darkness that haunted them head-on. Jasper had proposed another seance, this time with the intention of finding the source of the curse that still clung to the circus like a malignant shadow. Evelyn sat next to Jasper, her heart pounding in her chest. The memory of Lily's ghostly plea still echoed in her mind. She glanced around the circle, seeing the same mixture of determination and fear reflected in the faces of her fellow performers. They had all agreed to take part in this seance, knowing it might be their only chance to save Lily and break the curse once and for all. Jasper raised his hands, his voice steady and commanding. "Spirits of the past, we call upon you once more. We seek to understand the darkness that binds us, and to find a way to free the souls trapped by this curse. Show us the source of this evil, and guide us to the light." The candles flickered violently, their flames bending and twisting as if caught in an invisible wind. A chill swept through the tent, and the shadows seemed to grow darker, pressing in around the circle. Evelyn felt a familiar pressure on her chest, and she knew the spirits were near. A low, mournful whisper filled the air, and the temperature dropped further. The ghostly forms of Clara and Isabel appeared once more, their faces etched with sorrow and urgency. "You seek the source," Clara whispered, her voice barely audible over the howling wind. "The darkness lies deep within the earth, where the curse was born." Isabel's eyes fixed on Jasper. "You must go to the place where it all began, the old burial ground hidden beneath the forest floor. There, you will find the source of the curse and the key to breaking it." Jasper's face was pale, but his resolve was clear. "We will go," he said firmly. "We will find the source and end this curse." The spirits began to fade, but their final words lingered in the air. "Beware," Clara warned. "The darkness will not relinquish its hold easily. You must be strong and united, or all will be lost." With that, the spirits vanished, and the tent fell silent once more. The performers exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of the task ahead settling over them. They knew the journey to the old burial ground would be perilous, but they had no choice. Evelyn stood, her determination shining through her fear. "We have to do this," she said, her voice steady. "For Lily, and for all the souls trapped by this curse." The performers nodded in agreement, their resolve matching Evelyn's. They gathered what supplies they could, lanterns, ropes, shovels, and prepared to venture into the forest. The old burial ground awaited them, a place steeped in darkness and forgotten by time. As they set out, the forest seemed to close in around them, the trees looming like silent sentinels. The whispers of the past guided them, faint voices leading them deeper into the woods. The ground grew uneven, and the air grew colder with each step. After what felt like hours, they reached a clearing, the earth disturbed and the air thick with an unnatural stillness. Evelyn knew they had found the burial ground. The sense of dread was overwhelming, but she steeled herself, knowing they had to press on. Jasper began to dig, his hands moving with a sense of urgency. The others joined in, their shovels biting into the cold earth. As they unearthed the burial site, a sense of foreboding grew stronger. The ground seemed to pulse with a dark energy, and the air grew colder still. Finally, they uncovered a large ancient stone, covered in strange symbols and markings. Evelyn felt a chill run down her spine as she looked at the stone, knowing it held the key to the curse. Jasper knelt beside the stone, his face etched with determination. "This is it," he said, his voice steady. "We need to break the seal and release the trapped souls." With a collective breath, the performers worked together to lift the stone, revealing a dark, yawning chasm beneath. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the darkness seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Evelyn felt a surge of fear, but she pushed it aside, knowing they had come too far to turn back now. "We have to do this," she said, her voice strong. "For Lily, and for all the souls trapped by this curse." Jasper nodded, his eyes fixed on the darkness below. "Let's end this." As they prepared to descend into the chasm, the air grew colder, and the whispers of the past grew louder, urging them on. The journey to the heart of the curse had begun, and they knew the path ahead would be fraught with danger. But they were ready to face it, united in their determination to break the curse and free the trapped souls once and for all. The descent into the chasm was slow and treacherous. The air grew colder and thicker with each step, the darkness almost palpable. The lanterns cast weak, flickering beams of light, barely penetrating the oppressive gloom. The performers moved cautiously, their eyes wide with fear and determination. Jasper led the way, his face set in grim resolve. Evelyn followed closely, her heart pounding in her chest. The whispers of the past grew louder, guiding them deeper into the earth. The path twisted and turned, leading them through narrow tunnels and wide, cavernous chambers. After what felt like an eternity, they reached a vast underground cavern. The air was heavy with the scent of decay, and the ground was littered with bones and debris. In the center of the cavern stood a massive stone altar, covered in ancient symbols and markings. Evelyn felt a chill run down her spine as she approached the altar. She knew this was the source of the curse, the place where the darkness that haunted the circus had been born. The air was thick with malevolent energy, and the shadows seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Jasper stepped forward, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "This is it," he said, his eyes fixed on the altar. We need to perform the final rites and break the curse." The performers gathered around the altar, their faces etched with determination and fear. They joined hands, forming a circle around the ancient stone. Jasper began to chant, his voice echoing through the cavern. The air grew colder, and the darkness seemed to press in around them. As the chant reached a crescendo, the ground beneath them began to tremble. The symbols on the altar glowed with an eerie light, and the air was filled with a deafening roar. The performers held their ground, their voices joining Jasper's in a chorus of defiance and determination. Suddenly, the darkness exploded with a burst of light, and the cavern was filled with ghostly apparitions. The spirits of Clara, Isabel, and the other lost souls appeared, their faces filled with sorrow and anger. They floated above the altar, their eyes fixed on the performers. Evelyn felt a surge of fear, but she pushed it aside, knowing they had come too far to turn back now. "We need to finish this," she said, her voice strong. "For Lily, and for all the souls trapped by this curse." Jasper nodded, his eyes fixed on the spirits. "Spirits of the past, we call upon you," he said, his voice steady. "We seek to understand your pain and to help you find peace. Show us the way to break this curse and set you free." The spirits floated closer, their faces etched with sorrow and pain. Clara's ghostly form hovered above the altar, her eyes filled with anguish. "The curse was born of anger and betrayal," she said, her voice a haunting whisper. "It can only be broken by an act of selfless sacrifice." Evelyn felt a chill run down her spine as she realized what needed to be done. She glanced at Jasper, her eyes filled with determination. "We have to do this," she said, her voice steady. "For Lily, and for all the souls trapped by this curse." Jasper nodded, his face pale but resolute. "We need to perform the final act," he said, his voice trembling. "An act of selfless sacrifice to break the curse and set the spirits free." The performers exchanged uneasy glances, but they knew what needed to be done. They joined hands once more, their voices rising in a final, desperate chant. The air grew colder, and the ground beneath them trembled as the spirits floated closer, their faces filled with sorrow and longing. As the chant reached its peak, Evelyn stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. She felt a surge of fear, but she pushed it aside, knowing she had to be strong. She glanced at Jasper, her eyes filled with determination. "For Lily," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "And for all the souls trapped by this curse." With a final desperate breath, Evelyn stepped onto the altar, her body glowing with an eerie light. The spirits floated closer, their faces filled with sorrow and gratitude. As the light enveloped her, Evelyn felt a surge of pain, and then a profound sense of peace. The ground beneath them erupted in a burst of light, and the cavern was filled with a deafening roar. The spirits floated upward, their forms dissolving into the light. The darkness that had haunted the circus for so long was finally broken, and the air was filled with a sense of peace and renewal. As the light faded, the performers found themselves standing in the cavern, the air clear and the darkness gone. Evelyn's body lay still on the altar, her face peaceful and serene. Jasper knelt beside her, his eyes filled with tears. "She did it," he whispered, his voice trembling. "She broke the curse." The performers gathered around, their faces etched with sorrow and gratitude. They knew they had lost a dear friend, but they also knew that Evelyn's sacrifice had saved them all. The spirits were free, and the darkness that had haunted the circus was finally gone. As they made their way back to the surface, the sun was just beginning to rise, casting a warm, golden light over the circus grounds. The haunted circus tent, once a place of fear and sorrow, now stood as a symbol of hope and renewal. The performers knew they had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. They had broken the curse and set the spirits free, and they were ready to continue their journey, guided by the strength and unity of those who had sacrificed everything to save them. And as the sun rose higher in the sky, the circus continued its journey, no longer haunted by the ghosts of the past, but filled with the promise of a bright and hopeful future. The sun rose higher in the sky, casting a golden light over the circus grounds. The performers emerged from the underground cavern, their faces etched with a mixture of sorrow and relief. The oppressive weight of the curse had been lifted, and the air felt fresh and new, but the memory of Evelyn's sacrifice hung heavily over them. Jasper stood at the edge of the clearing, gazing at the horizon with a pensive expression. He knew they had won a hard-fought battle, but the cost had been great. The circus had lost one of its brightest stars, and the void left by Evelyn's absence was palpable. The performers gathered around Jasper, their faces solemn. They had formed a bond through their shared ordeal, and they knew they had to find a way to honor Evelyn's memory and move forward. "We need to give Evelyn a proper farewell," Jasper said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "She gave everything to save us, and we owe her that much." The performers nodded in agreement, their eyes filled with tears. They set to work, transforming the clearing into a memorial for Evelyn. They decorated the space with flowers, candles, and mementos from her life and performances. The air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers and the soft flicker of candlelight. As the sun set, casting a warm, golden light over the clearing, the performers gathered for the final farewell. Jasper stood at the center, his heart heavy with grief, but also with gratitude. He knew Evelyn's spirit would always be with them, guiding them as they continued their journey. Evelyn was more than just a performer, Jasper began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. She was a beacon of light in our darkest times, a source of strength and courage. She gave everything to break the curse and set the spirits free. Her sacrifice will never be forgotten. The performers stood in silence, their faces lit by the soft glow of the candles. Each of them held a small token, a piece of Evelyn's legacy that they would carry with them. As they placed their tokens at the memorial, a sense of peace and closure filled the air. After the farewell, the circus resumed its performances, but with a renewed sense of purpose and unity. The haunted circus tent, once a place of fear and sorrow, now stood as a symbol of resilience and hope. The performers knew they had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, bound by the memory of Evelyn's sacrifice. Jasper took on the role of mentor and guide, helping the performers navigate the challenges ahead. He knew they had to honor Evelyn's memory by continuing to bring joy and wonder to their audiences. The curse had been broken, but their journey was far from over. As the circus traveled from town to town, the performers felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were no longer haunted by the ghosts of the past, but guided by the strength and unity they had forged through their ordeal. The audience could sense the change, and the circus's reputation grew, attracting larger and more enthusiastic crowds. One evening, As the circus set up in a new town, a young girl approached Jasper, her eyes wide with excitement. "I heard about the haunted circus," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "Is it true? Did you really break a curse?" Jasper smiled, his heart swelling with pride and sorrow. "Yes, it's true," he said gently. "We faced a great darkness and emerged stronger. And now we bring light and joy wherever we go." The girl beamed, her eyes shining with admiration. "I want to join the circus someday," she said. "I want to be brave like you." Jasper's smile widened, and he placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. "You already are brave," he said. "And remember, the most important thing is to never give up, no matter how dark things may seem." As the circus tent filled with laughter and applause that night, Jasper felt a sense of peace settle over him. The performers moved with grace and confidence, their acts infused with the spirit of Evelyn's sacrifice. The haunted circus was no more. In its place stood a beacon of hope and resilience, a testament to the power of unity and the strength of the human spirit. And as the stars lit up the night sky, the circus continued its journey, bringing joy and wonder to all who came to see it. The memory of the haunted tent and the curse that once plagued them would remain, but it would no longer define them. They were free, and their future was filled with endless possibilities.
you